They repeatedly violated human rights. They kidnapped and killed and wounded people. They have committed a number of crimes that go beyond the actions of a democratic opposition inside a democratic process. We are denouncing this situation to the international community because in Bolivia, a despicable, indignant reality that violates every constitutional law. They also violate freedom of expression because they constantly limit our right as citizens, especially those in favor of this process, to freely express our ideas on the media. Why do they violate this right? Because the media in Bolivia, especially in Santa Cruz, belong to them, to the traditional politicians. So we have to question, denounce to the international community that in Bolivia we are facing serious problems and big confrontations, including armed confrontations with people that are opposing this process.
the MASA's response was to counter-mobilize against the thugs, and when there was violence, like deathly violence, to arrest the perpetrators. He never brought in the army, because that day of the opening of the Constituent Assembly, he said, never again will the Bolivian army be used against the Bolivian people. Never again. And he has kept to that, even though he could use the army. He doesn't use the army. He doesn't use violence.
The new constitution imposed by this dictator, this small dictator made in Venezuela, is the worst thing that could happen in our country. What kind of an education could we have, since he's only been a musician and a baker? He never has done anything. You can see his ignorance. The best thing he could do for Bolivia is to leave and stop being a servant of Venezuela and of Chavez. President Evo Morales, he only believes in the indigenous culture, in a culture that is already gone. For me, he is doing very bad. Giving away our country, our national reserves, to a God that does not exist. He supports abortion. He's in favor of homosexual marriages, etc. For those reasons, the Catholic Church has reasons to be against him. Now has the Church transmitted this opinion to the community. Through the voice of the Cardinal Julio Terrazas, the maximum authority of the Catholic Church, and of course all those that listen to him, become enlightened by his message. So in that way, the message of the Church spreads to society. We don't want communism that he has, that he wants. That's exactly what he wants. Should we live like Cuba in misery? This is not a game. There is only one religion, to be Catholic. But with the blessing of our Lord, with his blessing, this won't be permitted.
And the most wonderful story is the last one, which is they passed the referendum.
On January 2009, Bolivians held a national referendum on a new constitution and land reform. To help us understand the electoral process, we met with Jose Luis Exeli, the president of the National Electoral Court.
Primero es importante subrayar que el referéndum constituyente que vamos a tener en Bolivia este 25 de enero es un referéndum muy importante porque por primera vez, no solo en nuestra historia democrática, sino en nuestra historia republicana, que mediante el voto vamos a decidir sobre la aprobación o rechazo.
The referendum passed. I'm with the Toronto Bolivia Solidarity Committee, and we sent a delegation down to Bolivia to do a film, to observe and to do a film on the referendum, which is what the film is about. And the Senate, which is dominated by the right, was blocking the electoral bill, despite the fact that 60% supported it. So what did Evo do? He went on a hunger strike. The president of Bolivia went on a hunger strike last Thursday. Now, did you read about that in the newspapers? Oh, you did? No, not in the newspapers. I heard about it on the net. The president of a major country goes on a hunger strike, and it's not in the newspapers. You know, it should be on the front page of every paper. Right?
And 3,000 people was also in hunger strike.
And 3,000 people went on a hunger strike with him. And I guess the right thought, okay, now what's going to happen if we're responsible for him dying of hunger? It's not going to be too good for us. And they gave in. They gave in day before yesterday, and they passed the electoral law. So if you just think about that for a moment, and think about the difference in how they see political change. And what we can take from that is to understand that the change that we see happen through movements, like let's say the women's movement or the environmental movement, can continue if we broaden our ideas of what politics are. That it's a transformational process. It's not a process of too much we get into, a process of demand and consent, a process of pushing and pulling. It's a struggle, yes, but it's a transformational process. And the politicians shouldn't be any different than the rest of us in that process, the progressive politicians. They should be willing to put their bodies on the line the same way that we do, their jobs on the line. Evo's first thing he did when he was elected was cut his salary and every minister's salary in half, cut all the managers in government in half, and used that money to raise the minimum wage and hire 3,000 teachers. So there's much we can learn from Bolivia.
Yes.
There's much we can learn. We can't follow their path. They're a very different culture than we, a very different situation. But they are an inspiration and hope for humanity, because they show that it's possible to go from a situation of 70% people marginalized in poverty, people who were mostly illiterate, and mobilize with those people and transform a society. And it's still in process, and I have every confidence that they're going to continue this process.
Everything that is now happening in Bolivia is a wake-up call to the world. In Aymara we say, this is not a time to be asleep. It's a time to wake up. It's time to dream. It's time to walk in this horizon of Summa Jamaria. Our grandfathers made it clear in the ancient prophecies. One of the Lakota people says, when humanity is at the border of the abyss, when there is a crisis in life, we'll all emerge strong again, the rainbow warriors from the south, to bring back the balance and harmony. You are a rainbow warrior, brother, sister. You are being called by our Mother Earth, by our Pachamama, to act now. It's time to begin writing our own pages of our own history. It's not just time to watch or read history. This is an important and marvelous time for all of us. Yahaya. It's the same struggle as the Palestinians, foreigners in their own land. And the Palestinian people, no matter how hard the empire tries, I'm not talking about the American people, I mean the empire, the American elite, because of economic interest, wants to subjugate them. So many people killed, so many children assassinated, murdered and bombed. The Palestinian people will never be defeated.
Todos juntos somos Bolivia y seremos muchos más.
Well done.